What if, like 90% of the greatest minds in human history just died without achieving a single thing,
Wow.
right? Not because they lacked intelligence or, didn't work hard enough, but simply because they happened to be born in the wrong zip code.
Or the wrong century.
Exactly. Welcome to today's deep dive, because if you ever bought into the idea that true once-in-a-generation brilliance will always just find a way to bubble up to the surface.
The whole cream rises to the top thing.
Yeah, that whole idea. Well, we are about to severely test that theory today. We are unpacking this really highly provocative essay from September 12th, 2022. It's by an author named Su Feng, and it was translated by Kinyu. It's titled The Path of Genius.
And it really is, it's a fascinating framework. It basically completely deconstructs our entire modern mythology of success.
It really does.
Because the core premise here suggests that geniuses aren't these impossibly rare anomalies. Right? They're probably walking down your street right now. But the essay argues that without four incredibly specific external elements aligning.
And those are soil, environment, freedom, and fortune.
Right, exactly. Without those aligning perfectly, all that raw intellectual horsepower essentially just turns into waste.
9 out of 10.
Yeah.
Completely unrecognized by history.
Yeah.
Which is just, that is a staggering metric for lost human potential.
It's kind of bleak, honestly.
Yeah, very bleak. But before we get into the mechanics of why that happens and how this text kind of tears down the whole self-made visionary idea, we need to set some parameters for the conversation today.
Yeah, that's a really important note, because the source material we're unpacking today makes some very strong, very unflinching claims.
Yeah, it doesn't hold back.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It talks about specific countries, historical institutions, and even deeply personal social structures like marriage. So, to be clear to you listening, we are not here to endorse these viewpoints.
Right. We're not taking sides here.
Exactly. We're not taking sides on any of the politically charged hypotheticals the text presents. Our job today is strictly to act as impartial guides. We just want to map out this highly unique framework exactly as it's presented in the text.
So you can understand the author's underlying logic of, how this particular text defines the creation or destruction of a genius.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's unpack this, starting from the absolute ground up. The text begins with the first foundational requirement, which it calls soil.
Soil.
Right. Talk about the macro environment here, like the literal physical geography of where you are planted on the map.
Yeah, and to understand the mechanism here, the framework strictly separates innate cognitive ability from the external infrastructure that's required to support it.
Okay.
Having a high-processing brain is just step one. The soil dictates whether that brain is actually allowed to function.
Right, and the author uses Elon Musk to illustrate this, which, is a perfect anchor point because love him or hate him.
He undeniably operates at a visionary scale in tech.
Exactly. But the argument made here is that if Musk had never left his birthplace of South Africa, the things he's famous for simply wouldn't exist.
Because the environment wasn't right.
Right. The text posits that the specific nurturing environment, the capital, the talent pools, the industrial infrastructure, it just wasn't present there to sustain his specific brand of ambition.
Which highlights a really crucial distinction in the text. It isn't a critique of his mind, it's an observation of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
But then the text pushes that concept even further with a much sharper hypothetical. It asks us to imagine if Musk were Chinese, living and operating in China.
Oh, right. And the text flat out asserts that in that specific soil, he wouldn't even dare to propose colonizing Mars.
Or the Starlink project.
Yeah, the thousands of satellites. The claim is that if he actively pursued those massive disruptive ideas there, he might have already been confined to a mental institution.
It's a very provocative example, but setting aside the provocation for a second, let's look at the underlying mechanism it's trying to expose. Different societies and political structures have radically different thresholds for what they process as visionary versus what they process as a threat to the status quo.
Or just sheer insanity.
Right. If a governing body or a cultural framework demands conformity, a highly disruptive idea isn't seen as brilliant. It's diagnosed as a malfunction.
I love to visualize it this way. Think of a genius. Not as a machine that just needs to be switched on, but as a rare exotic seed.
Okay, I like that.
You can hold the most incredible, genetically perfect seed in the universe in your hand. But if you plant it in the middle of a concrete parking lot, it simply dies.
It doesn't matter how flawless the DNA is.
Exactly. The concrete is just completely indifferent to the seed's potential.
That analogy perfectly captures the reality of the macro environment, because the seed can't change the concrete. The genius is incredibly fragile in its early stages.
Yeah, very fragile.
If the soil lacks the right nutrients, whether that's venture capital, freedom of speech, or even just societal tolerance for failure, the potential is silenced before it even sprouts. Finding the right soil must be the absolute primary choice on the path of genius.
Okay, but surviving the macro environment doesn't mean you're safe.
Yeah.
Let's say you find the perfect dirt.
Right.
You relocate to a country that supports your wild ideas.
You're still not out of the woods.
Not at all. The essay argues that your microenvironment, basically the immediate people in your daily orbit, can neutralize that good soil almost instantly. Which brings us to the second element.
Environment and freedom.
Yes, specifically, freedom from triviality.
And this is where the framework directly attacks some of our most deeply held social norms. It forces us to look at the cognitive load of everyday life.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. And full disclosure, where I genuinely struggle with the text's conclusions. The essay pivots to a historical figure, Christopher Columbus.
Right, the discovery of the New World.
Right, and it poses a hypothetical. What if Columbus had a wife who was heavily involved in his life while he was planning his voyage?
The scenario the author presents suggests that the mere responsibility of a domestic partnership would have completely grounded him.
Because the domestic duty would override the global ambition.
Exactly. And the text goes really deep into the psychology of this. It imagines a scenario where a partner is, and I'm quoting the text here, narrow-minded and jealous.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It suggests she would accuse him of abandoning the family or demand to know how they would financially survive his absence.
It pictures her explicitly forbidding the journey, right? Telling him that as long as she is alive, he isn't going anywhere.
Right. And this builds to what is probably the most staggering claim in the entire essay. The author states that marriage and family bury half the world's geniuses. Half of them. Just gone, swallowed up by domestic life.
I mean, I just have to push back on this because it feels so bleakly one-dimensional. Does it really have to be this either scenario?
It's extreme, for sure.
Is the author just completely ignoring how a partner could act as an anchor or like a vital support system? We know plenty of historical figures who relied heavily on their spouses to manage things so they could work. Why is domestic life viewed strictly as a ball and chain here?
It's a very fair critique. It assumes the absolute worst-case scenario for a partnership. But if we drill down into the core philosophy the author is presenting, the text insists that the level of dedication required to alter the course of human history is inherently selfish.
Selfish, okay.
It requires an absolute uncompromising obsession. And a healthy relationship, by definition, requires compromise. It requires you to care about someone else's immediate needs, pay the bills, be present.
Right, I guess you can't compromise on discovering a new continent. You can't be like, I'll sail halfway across the ocean, but I'll be back in time for dinner.
Precisely. The cognitive bandwidth required to maintain a family is massive. The essay refers to these as trivial matters and mundane people.
It sounds incredibly harsh.
It really does. But it's essentially arguing that the energy needed to navigate the daily friction of regular life is energy stolen directly from the genius's ultimate mission. To this author, true freedom means total liberation from the mundane.
So if someone relies on you for emotional or financial survival, you're no longer free to risk everything on a wild vision.
That's the argument.
Okay, so let's follow this logic to its extreme. Let's say you do everything right according to this path. You move to the perfect country. You avoid all deep emotional attachments. You're single, unburdened, hyper-focused.
You've got the perfect soil and total freedom.
Exactly. You are still not guaranteed success because there is a third massive hurdle, and this one is entirely out of your control. We're talking about the element of fortune.
The era in which you were born, the historical lottery.
Because having the right geographic space means nothing if you arrive at the wrong point in time.
Yeah, and the text illustrates this beautifully by listing 5 undisputed medical geniuses from ancient China: Hua Tuo, Li Shizhen, Bian Kui, Sun Simiao, and Zhang Zongjing. These are towering, legendary figures in the history of medicine, pioneers who completely changed the health landscape of their eras.
Unquestionable geniuses within their historical context. But the text asks us to imagine dropping those exact same brilliant minds with their exact same skill sets into modern-day China.
And the conclusion is brutal. The essay claims that today they would be immediately labeled as quacks.
Right.
They'd be detained on charges of practicing medicine without a license or forcibly shut down by authorities.
Let's unpack the why behind that, because it really gets to the heart of how paradigm shifts work. When an era has an established, rigid system for solving a problem, like our modern medical licensing system, it demands that everyone speak its specific language.
It doesn't matter if your methods actually work.
Exactly. If you don't possess the culturally agreed-upon credentials, your innovation is processed as dangerous deviation. True genius often solves problems in unprecedented ways, but rigid systems treat the unprecedented as a threat.
The essay uses this deeply melancholy phrase for this. Exotic flowers cannot survive in winter.
Meaning, the timing of your birth has to perfectly align with an era ready to accept your specific talents. Society has to be in a spring.
And if the timing is unfavorable, if you're born in winter, the result isn't just that you go unnoticed. Society actively suppresses you.
So what does this all mean? It reminds me of a thought experiment. Imagine a true genius inventing the modern smartphone in the early 1800s.
Oh, that's a great example.
You sit there in 1820 with this glowing rectangle of glass and metal. You are undeniably a genius. But there are no cell towers.
Right.
There are no satellites. We haven't even harnessed commercial electricity yet.
The societal infrastructure to feed the genius simply doesn't exist.
Right. You can't charge it. You can't connect it to anything. The world just isn't ready. So if timing is this crucial, does that mean genius is defined more by the era's ability to use the person rather than the person's actual brain?
This raises an important question, right? It synthesizes the tragedy of that winter analogy.
Yeah.
Fortune is the uncontrollable variable in the author's equation. It's a stark reminder of the role pure luck plays in history. It shatters the illusion of a pure meritocracy.
It really is a terrifying thought. We tell ourselves the cream always rises to the top, but this says, no, you could have the most brilliant mind in a millennium, but if you're born in winter, you'll be crushed by the frost.
How many cures for diseases, how many revolutionary clean energy solutions have been permanently lost just because the person was born 50 years too early?
It completely redefines genius.
Right.
Okay, so up until this point, the essay has been intensely focused on worldly success. Billionaires, explorers, doctors, material things.
Right.
But the final paragraphs reveal the true, surprising ultimate destination of this framework. We move completely from material success to spiritual transcendence.
It's a striking pivot. The author takes the exact same mechanical structure applied to a sea voyage or a tech startup and maps it directly onto the metaphysical realm.
I have to admit, I was genuinely surprised by this. The text flatly states that anyone who manages to become a celestial being or a Buddha absolutely must be a genius.
Because achieving that state requires incredibly high spirituality and perseverance.
Right. It requires the exact same caliber of mind as a world-changing inventor. So achieving spiritual enlightenment follows the exact same path. You need the suitable soil, freedom from trivialities, and opportune timing.
The final instruction is basically, seek the right soil, break free from all constraints, and leave your fortune to fate.
Wait, really? So spiritual enlightenment is basically being treated as an elite tier of genius?
Yeah.
That completely changes how we view religious figures.
How so?
Well, we usually see them as these spontaneous miracles of divine grace, but this treats them as supreme geniuses who perfectly navigated their environmental constraints.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it beautifully ties the worldly to the divine. This perspective actively demystifies enlightenment. We usually think of transcendence as happening in a vacuum, detached from the physical world.
Like if you just meditate hard enough, you'll reach nirvana.
Exactly, but this text grounds the ethereal. It essentially says, you cannot meditate your way to enlightenment if your soil is toxic and your days are consumed by mundane survival.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Think about the historical function of a monastery. It is an engineered environment. It's specific soil designed to remove trivial matters like earning a wage or raising a family, so the monks have the freedom to focus entirely on spiritual elevation.
That makes so much sense. Even the highest spiritual planes are subject to the same strict practical rules as a tech startup.
Yes.
Okay, so let's quickly recap the 4 undeniable pillars of the author's framework for genius. We have soil, the macrogeography; environment, the immediate people around you; freedom, cutting away mundane domestic tasks; and fortune, the uncontrollable luck of the historical era.
It's a very delicate recipe.
It really is. And unpacking this forces you, listening to this right now, to look at your own life. Are you in the right soil? Are you constrained by your environments? Are you waiting for a societal spring that hasn't arrived?
It's a lot to process. But as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over. Something that builds on the text but pushes in a different direction.
Okay, let's hear it.
The author focuses heavily on how the world shapes the genius, finding the pre-existing perfect environment. But what if the true mark of a once-in-a-generation mind isn't just finding the right soil, but terraforming the bad soil they are planted in,
Oh, wow.
forcing the winter environment to adapt to them, actually turning the concrete into dirt?
I love that. Building the infrastructure yourself instead of just looking for it.
Exactly.
That's a huge thought to end on. Well, keep questioning your environment, take a hard look at the soil around you, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.
See you next time.